Ever felt a connection to a brand or maybe a sports team that's so deep that when they mess up, it hurts you personally? We're
Hmm.
talking about a sense of ownership, where their victory feels like your identity winning and their failure is this deep personal disappointment.
Yeah, it goes way beyond just being a customer.
Exactly. That profound emotional investment, that's what we're calling brand tribalism. The brand becomes your chosen community. So, okay, let's unpack this a little.
Let's do it.
The sources we've pulled for this deep dive are just fascinating. They stretch from analyzing the intense loyalty of Spanish soccer fans all the way to understanding guests in luxury hotels in India.
And then into crisis management in sports. It's a really broad spectrum.
It is. So our mission today is to analyze the psychological mechanisms that forge these modern tribes and, crucially, to figure out what happens to that loyalty when the brand faces a major failure.
And what's so fascinating here is just how universal these psychological mechanisms are. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're identifying with a global football club worth billions
Right.
or a highly exclusive luxury service. The consumer is fundamentally using that brand to construct and affirm their own identity.
So we're looking for the specific traits that an organization has to embody to cultivate a tribe.
Exactly. And then we'll put those tribes under the ultimate stress test, a massive organizational crisis.
Okay, so let's start with the foundation. In the modern world, the traditional anchors that used to define our identity,
Things like religion or your neighborhood.
yeah, or even national heritage, they just don't hold the same weight they once did. So people are naturally community seeking, and they're filling that void with what you could call neo-tribes.
Right. These groups that are formed through shared consumption, supporting a team, wearing certain clothes, driving a specific car,
Yeah.
the act of buying something becomes central to who you are.
And that distinction is so important. This isn't just a commercial transaction.
No, not at all. We look at this through the lens of social identity theory. This tribalism isn't what academics call spurious loyalty.
What's that?
That's just buying something because there are no other alternatives, like you're stuck with one cable company in your area.
Got it.
This is a volitive response. That means it's a willful, deliberate, positive choice to integrate that brand into your personal identity. You choose to belong.
And because you're choosing it, the organization has to be, well, worthy of that choice. So what makes them worthy?
Hmm.
For that, we turn to a really robust study of Spanish soccer fans, 1,600 subjects, super passionate fan base. And this research identified three key characteristics that most strongly influence this brand tribalism.
These are, you could say, the pillars of the tribe. And the
Yeah.
order they fall in it's very instructive for any organization trying to build this kind of loyalty.
So let's start at the bottom. The first driver, still important, but the least of the three,
Mm-hmm.
was competitiveness.
Right. The team's basic drive to win, the success on the field. It's a positive factor, of course, but, its influence was surprisingly the smallest of the three.
Which confirms that just winning isn't enough to build a real tribe.
Not a deep one, no.
Okay, moving up. The second strongest driver was prestige.
Yeah, and this is all about the perceived superiority of the team, the history, the recognition of its glorious achievements, that feeling of being part of something massive and strong and honorable.
Prestige makes you proud to be a part of it. It validates your choice to belong.
Exactly.
But the finding that really floored me, and the one with the strongest influence, was morality.
Yes. This focuses on the organization's sustainable and socially responsible behaviors, the perception that the club is good.
That it operates ethically, that it cares about more than just the bottom line. That was by far the biggest positive driver of tribalism.
It's a defining aspect of modern loyalty. The club's perceived goodness, its integrity, that matters more than just its skill on the pitch. But here's where it gets really counterintuitive.
Wait, hold on. If they care so much about morality,
Mm.
what about things like brand credibility or authenticity?
You'd think those would be key.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But the study found they had a negative or non-significant influence.
You're telling me fans care less about whether the club is transparent or genuine in its day-to-day operations than they care about its broader moral standing. That just feels wrong.
It does feel wrong, but it speaks volumes about why people join these tribes. They aren't looking for a perfect friend. They're looking for a glorious flag to fly.
Okay.
Authenticity often means transparency about the messy parts, right?
Yeah.
The internal squabbles, the mistakes. A fan seeking identity through a brand doesn't want to see the organization's dirty laundry.
Ah, I see. They need the symbol to stay clean.
Exactly. They need the club to be moral in its public actions and prestigious in its history. Those are the tools they use to build their identity, the boring business details, much less relevant to that tribal bond.
That is a phenomenal strategic insight. It explains why a morally powerful story can sometimes overcome a bad season.
So now let's look at the payoff. Because this intense loyalty is highly, highly profitable.
It creates a self-sustaining marketing engine. Tribalism leads directly to loyalty, which, in that soccer study, had the biggest effect in the entire model.
And this isn't just buying tickets.
No, it's both behavioral repeat purchases and that strong emotional commitment.
And it creates advocates. Tribalism also had a huge effect on word of mouth,
Right. We're talking about fans actively, passionately speaking well of the brand, defending it.
which in turn fuels recruitment, bringing new members into the fold. So the fan base literally becomes your unpaid, highly motivated marketing department.
And to show this isn't just limited to, soccer scarves and stadium chants, let's pivot. Let's connect this idea to a completely different sector. Luxury hospitality. This is based on research in the Indian market.
Okay, so we're moving from the roar of the crowd to the quiet luxury of a five-star hotel. Does the same psychology even apply?
The path is a little different, but the destination is the same. In hospitality, the critical ingredient isn't morality first, it's emotional brand attachment, or EBA, personal passion, the pride, the affection you feel for a specific hotel. The study confirmed that this emotional attachment is what leads to brand tribalism in this context. You fall in love with the service, then you join the community.
Okay, and why does that matter so much?
Because both that emotional attachment and the tribalism it creates lead directly to something researchers call customer value co-creation behavior, or CVCB.
CVCB. Okay, let's put that into plain English.
CVCB basically means your most attached customers stop being passive. They turn into active co-producers of the brand experience.
How so?
They're the ones offering helpful feedback, advocating for you online, maybe helping new guests. And most importantly, they show a high level of tolerance when service mistakes happen. They're invested, so they actively help you succeed.
Wow. That's a strategic masterstroke for any business. You build a tribe, and that tribe becomes your greatest operational asset, actively covering for your shortcomings.
Pretty much.
So that brings us to our first reflection point for you, the listener. Think about the organizations you're most fiercely loyal to, maybe an airline, a car company, a university. Is your attachment driven more by the brand's perceived morality like in the sports study? Or is it more about your own internal emotional attachment, your passion for the product itself, like in the luxury example?
And, look beyond the usual suspects. What are the biggest non-sport or non-luxury tribes you identify with? A software platform, maybe? A
Yeah.
coffee shop? What's the one thing that keeps you loyal to that group?
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We've set up how organizations build this intense, identity-defining loyalty. But what happens when that carefully built engine hits the ultimate stress test? A serious organizational crisis.
Right. We're talking poor performance, financial trouble, a leadership controversy. Does the tribe just scatter?
Yeah, what happens?
Well, this is the core finding from the sports crisis study, and it's nuanced. The short answer is no, the tribe doesn't scatter. Tribal loyalty endures, but its manifestation, it transitions dramatically.
How does it transition?
When the club faced sustained negative performance, the active engagement, all the commenting, the tweeting, the interaction, it plummeted. The fans went quiet.
They just disengaged.
They showed little desire to interact, but they didn't disappear. Instead, they switched to symbolic forms of loyalty and passive content consumption. They still read every article, they still followed the club religiously. Their willingness to defend the club actually remains strong.
So the tribe circles the wagons, but they do it silently.
Exactly. They're
Right.
watching, supporting, and waiting.
So that core emotional relationship is still there, but the digital behavior changes completely. And
Foundational failure, say bad financial management or leadership getting caught in a lie. The club incurs what the research calls a moral debt to the tribe.
moral debt. Unpack that for me.
It means the organization has violated the implicit contract. The fan chose the club because of its perceived morality or prestige. When the leadership fails ethically or the team fails competitively over and over, that's a violation of the very identity the fan invested in.
It's not just you lost a game, it's you tarnished the identity I wear on my sleeve.
You got it. The organization now owes the tribe a debt of strategic and ethical correction.
And this is where I assume a lot of modern digital marketing just completely misses the mark. You can't run a 20% off jersey sale to pay off a moral debt.
That's the key takeaway. The sources are very clear. Generic digital strategies are wholly inadequate here. Personalization, promotional messaging, they're inadequate tools for repaying moral debt.
So what does work?
You can use digital channels to support emotional continuity, maybe reminding them of past glory, but you cannot fix performance-related disillusionment with an Instagram ad. You have to address the violation head-on.
So strategic, transparent communication.
Yes. If you lied, you have to own the lie. If you're performing poorly, you have to transparently outline the turnaround plan. You have to address the failure of morality or competitiveness directly.
That is such a critical lesson for any business leader. Know the difference between a simple service mistake and a fundamental violation of your tribal pillars. One needs a discount, the other needs a whole new strategy. Okay, let's shift focus to the future of this highly professionalized world of fandom. The major industry outlooks say it's becoming an incredibly crowded playing field.
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing a tidal wave of new sports content. The traditional leagues are expanding aggressively. The NFL in Europe, college football playoffs getting bigger, the FIFA World Cup expanding.
And that growth, while it seems good, it forces a really tough strategic question on every league.
Which is, what is the upper limit of a fan's attention and, more importantly, their spending?
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the answer to sustaining that growth seems to hinge on one thing: data.
It really does. Fan data is professionalizing the entire back office of sports. Fan databases let them tailor strategies, but increasingly, that data is becoming the primary thing brands want in a sponsorship deal. It's a whole new revenue stream.
We're talking about super granular detail here. The NFL, for example, creates fan profiles with over 250 different attributes for each fan.
And that data isn't just sitting there. An organization like FC Bayern Munich has what they call the Golden Fan Record, pulling data from more than 50 different systems. This proprietary access to an audience is now arguably as valuable as the TV rights.
But this push to monetize data is colliding head-on with the growing problem of fan fragmentation.
It is. You have these contradictory forces at play. On one hand, you have huge innovation.
Right? The rise of streaming, altcasts like ESPN's Manning Cast, the boom in docuseries to keep people subscribed in the off-season. 40% of Gen Z and millennials say they want more of that documentary-style content.
But that innovation is a reaction to the fragmentation problem. On the other hand, the barrier to just being a fan is skyrocketing. 35% of consumers say they have to subscribe to too many services just to watch the games they want.
They're hitting subscription fatigue.
Total fatigue.
And that high barrier could seriously threaten the very tribal loyalty we've been talking about. If it gets too expensive or complicated to follow your team, the tribe might just fracture and find something else to do.
The industry knows this, and they're trying to combat it with novel experiences. We're seeing things like immersive out-of-venue concepts, like Cosm's shared reality video domes.
Trying to replicate the stadium atmosphere without the stadium price tag.
Exactly. And the big question is whether these are just a novelty or if they represent a sustainable alternative that will fundamentally change how stadiums are even built in the future.
So let's bring this all together for you. Brand tribalism is this powerful emotional engine. It delivers extreme loyalty, advocacy, all of it.
And we learned its foundation is built on two key pillars: morality and prestige, even more so than just winning or being authentic.
We've also learned that this loyalty endures during a crisis, but it shifts underground. It goes from active engagement to passive, symbolic defense.
And if that crisis involves a core failure, the brand incurs a moral debt that you just can't fix with simple digital ads.
And looking forward, the future hinges on professionalizing fan data for revenue, but that has to be balanced against the very real financial fatigue that consumers are facing from subscription overload. Which brings us to our final strategic thought for you to consider. Can sports leagues and teams find a sustainable balance between maximizing those massive TV rights payouts, which is what leads to all these fragmented deals, and the best interests of the fans they serve, especially when it comes to accessibility and affordability?
Yeah, you probably already feel like you subscribe to too many services. So what, for you, is the absolute limit, the financial limit, the complexity limit, before you just decide the cost of entry is too high and you stop watching?
And looking forward, keep an eye on this trend from the industry outlooks. Will the number of brands partnering with sports organizations mainly for access to their fan data continue to grow? Will it shift the primary asset from the game itself to the audience profiles watching it? Because if that happens, it's not just a business decision. It's a fundamental transformation of the relationship between the brand and the tribe.